state of St. Louis. No, I'm joking. Thank you, Jake. Thank you from everybody at INVO Solutions for having me out. Yes, I am from St. Louis. Name is Alex Brockman. Oh, that's a fancy suit. I'm wearing it again. All this stuff is going to make sense. This whole kit, this whole get up, it's going to make sense at the very end. So just stay with me. Don't let that distract you. But it is something of notice. But you just kind of have to have a little fun with doing presentations like this. So I'll give you a little background on me. I started my career at Bank of America in 2010. I was working full-time at one of the highest producing branches in Missouri. I wore every hat inside that place. I was a banker, I was a teller for 2 days, sales and service associate, then went to personal banker, was one of the top bankers in the Midwest. Went on a wealth management rotation at Wells Fargo Advisors, brought in about $2 billion in trailing 12 through the Northeast and in Florida, and then took all of that experience from home office life, working with 34,000 people at Wells Fargo Advisors, to the branch network, and took that over to Newground. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with Newground. They're a St. Louis-based company. They've got offices in Chicago, Hawaii, Toronto, they've got San Francisco, they've got a Northeast presence, but strategic design build firm that also does brand management and all of those things as well. And now I work as the Senior Vice President and Strategist for a technology company called CSG. And so in 2019, the last logo is Whole Brain Strategies. I teamed up with Bill Donius. Are you guys familiar with Bill Donius from Pulaski Bank in St. Louis? He put a 28X on the company from, I think it was 1996 whenever he came on, and then put it on the tracks to get merged with Busey. But what he has done over the last number of years is he wrote a book called Thought Revolution, and it's basically a way to access the right hemisphere of your brain and problem solve and come up with solutions to problems that have normally taken years to fix, and we can do that in about five minutes. So a lot of times these keynotes are just, hey, everybody be quiet, listen to me. I wouldn't listen to me either. This is a discussion. So if you guys need to play the Top Gun song to get my attention, if you need to raise your hands, stomp your feet, do whatever you need. Because again, the only way that I feel like we're going to have a great kickoff to this to the summit is if we have more of a discussion rather than a presentation. I mean that wholeheartedly. So let's see. There we go. So I want us to imagine just how much that technology has influenced the world of banking over the last 100 years. We're in 2022. Who can tell me, out of these dates, 1920, 1957, 1970, 1997, 2011, and 2014, what happened in 1920 that revolutionized the banking world? Any guesses? No, 1920. What happened in what do you got? It was the first drive-through bank. The first drive-through bank was in 1920. What about 1957? What does anybody think happened in 1957? We had the first computer in a bank. 1970. Now we're starting. What was that? First ATM. Very good. First ATM. What about 1997? That was the first online banking login. Is that what you're going to say? Very good. 2011? ITMs, maybe. What I have is first mobile banking application for a financial institution. And then 2014. That was crypto? Oh, I think Dogecoin was 2013. No, 2014, I believe, was the first video banking solution that was developed and implemented in India. So, I mean, going from drive-through banks, computers, ATMs, online banking, to video banking, that all happened very quickly. And as you can see in the dates, everything is getting faster, right? Everything's getting much more quick. It took 30 years from drive-throughs to ATMs. Everything is getting faster, though. And so, what I try to do whenever I'm working with community bankers and whenever I'm working with credit union executives, what I try and do is to wrap all of everything that I have into one concise methodology. And that methodology to me is called Imagine. And so Imagine is the brainchild of the folks at Newground. And so in the last downturn in 2008, they surveyed the top 500 financial institutions, the top performers all over the world. And they asked them, how did you get from where you were to where you are today and where you're headed? And so the amalgam of all that research was put together, and it is now called the Imagine process. And the guys at Newground do this, but what I've done is I've added a couple different layers of complexity to it, and I've just jam-packed that sucker tight and full so that it's like your backpack when you're going on a 14er. You know, you might need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things, or you might need 50. Depends on if you're going with all your girls or just by yourself, right, Jake? So, all right, so the way that we start Imagine, it's an acronym. So the first portion of Imagine is identity. And a lot of times whenever we get into strategic planning sessions, this is the part where everybody says, all right, what are our big, hairy, audacious goals, right? What's our bag? All that kind of stuff. What do we want to be? Who do we want to be in 5, 10, 15 years? I think a lot of times this is something where the same 3 to 5 people sit in the boardroom, or they go to a convention hall, something like that, and they spend 2 days hammering out the same questions, they dust off the same playbook, and surprise, surprise, you get the same answers, right? This is typical of, this is not just financial services. This is organizations that I work with all over the place. They have the same process and it's broken. And so what I want to help figure out is not just who you want to be in 5, 10, 15 years, but have an accurate assessment of who you are today, because that's your starting point. That's the initial onset of where you are to get to the peak of where you want to be. Because sometimes, you know, it was funny, I had a $28 million credit union executive tell me, seriously, deadpan, I want to be Navy Fed in 10 years. $28 million to Navy Fed in 10 years. If she does it, I will, you know, I'll give her a handshake and I'll buy her some chocolates or something, because that's amazing. But I do want to say that in 1994, UICCU, are you guys familiar with University of Iowa Community Credit Union? In 94, they were a $100 million shop. What are they, 10 billion today as Green State? They had a very strategic and laser-focused mission that they went on, and they said, we will double every 5 years until we want to stop. And so that's where they are today. And so the next portion, whenever you get into market, whenever you go from understanding who I am today and who I want to be, then you have to understand your market. Who do you serve? A lot of times in the core platforms that you guys have, there's MCIS software, right? The Monetary Condition Index. Basically, it's the mortality probability of your client base. It's a stark reality, right? You look at that factor, you look at that index, and you might go, ooh, you know, that's a little scary. We don't want to see that number that high. But what it does is it's a good base level to start from. Then typically what I recommend to people is that you go tried and true, get surveys done. Go survey the new people that you've brought into the bank or the credit union. Surveys, focus groups, and have professionals do the focus groups. Please, you don't want your VP of marketing sitting in and facilitating a focus group, and then you've got one loudmouth that takes up all the time in the world and you don't get any input from anybody else. You want a pro that's going to be doing this. Then, you know, when you start to do some of the stuff that we do in the technology space and data and analytics, this is called Rfm Segmentation. Raise your hands. Anybody know what Rfm Segmentation is? Recency, frequency, and monetary. How recent was their last visit? How frequent do they come over a 12-month time span? And what is the monetary value of that relationship? And so Rfm segmentation, that's like the base level of data analytics. When you really look at and have access to all that information, it's basically how you get started in data analytics. What you're looking for in all of this information is, what is my ideal client profile look like? You gotta get really specific on some of the pieces of information. You wanna identify, you know, top 3 groups of people. There's different words that you can put on it, but it's personas or archetypes. You want to try and get really specific on, okay, I want to have more individuals that look like Sandra. I want to have more families that look like the Duncan family. and I want to have more corporate relationships like United Plumbing or something like that. When you get very specific and can model those things, then you're able to have a better understanding of what you're looking for, who you're trying to attract, and who you serve very, very well. And really what I say is, hey, you can do all that kind of stuff. And then when you know it's Sandra, it's the Duncan family, and it's United Plumbing, go ask them for referrals. Very, very basic. So that's market. When you get into area, this is kind of where the digital world starts to come into play a little bit more, right? Because there's going to be places where I think the old triangle was where you want to be located in between where people live, work, and worship. Howard Schultz at Starbucks said, I don't want to have worship anymore, I want to have it be where they drink their coffee. That was his goal. He said the holy triangle was, he wanted a Starbucks as the third portion of the triangle. But area where they're located physically and digitally, you want to have your locations, we still have branches, right? Those things still work. People still come to them, even after COVID. It's fascinating. It's basically we want to have the importance of digital interacting in a physical place. And so this is where online banking comes into play. This is where the branch networks come into play. But we need to be located in physical places where people can come to us with ease and convenience, and then also provide the technology solutions that wrap that around. And so this is, in my estimation, this is probably where third-party vendors and consultants come into play to help you kind of figure that out and navigate that process. Let's see. That's not right. There we go. Getting noticed. Whenever I think about getting noticed, it's more about the marketing side of things and how people are coming to your credit union, coming to your bank. The old playbook, it's going to be heavily dependent on the target market that we just identified, those ideal client profiles. But the old playbook is kind of newspaper, chamber events, television, radio. Hey, if your ICP, if your ideal client profile listens there, gets their information from there, and attends those meetings, great, keep doing it. But if they're not, if your ideal client profile are the people that make you the most money for the least amount of effort on the Pareto principle, if that's happening, then you need to start figuring out social media. You need to start figuring out what you can do to attract those people and engage them where they are. So that's Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Snapchat. I mean, you might have to have some 21-year-old do TikTok for you. I don't know. But next level, don't worry about having direct line attribution for these things. My CEO at CSG, he's an old marketing guy. And so all he thinks is that 2011 playbook from HubSpot, which is direct line attribution. It's like, I don't know if I can have direct line attribution from the golf event that I sponsored or the podcast that I was on, because it's just not possible. There's no way for somebody to say, hey, the reason that I chose you guys was because I heard Alex on some podcast, or I met him at a Starbucks or something like, you're just gonna have to make sure that you're know what these people are doing, where they're engaging, and then be where they are. That's how you get noticed by people today, in my estimation. And then it comes to the initial offering. When I was consulting with banks and credit unions, a lot of times there's 50 different products that they have. The largest number that I saw was at a bank in Iowa, and they had 132 products that they offered their bank, and they were only a $190 million bank. And I said, oh boy, could you just have 4? Is that possible? Can we just do checking, savings, credit card, and home loans? Please, because 130 is ungodly. That's a regulation nightmare. So stop spending money offering all these products. Figure out what your best products are and accentuate those things. Make them better. Continue to get feedback from your people. Why did you choose this? What do you like about it? What do you hate about it? Make it better. Continue making those products better instead of adding in another one. Then we get into the nurture and educate side. And so nurture and educate, to me, this is some of the, again, more research. And it's more based on, to me, it's staff. Take time to wrap your mind and your arms and your leadership team around all the findings from the previous areas, from identity, market, area, getting noticed. What are you best at, the initial offering? And then A/B test some of this stuff. And so what I mean by A/B test is try going one way, see if that works. And also at the same time, try going this way and see if that works. And then you compare the results between the two. So it's kind of scientific method, right? You're trying different variables, you're including different things, so you can't say, well, we did that and it didn't work, so we're gonna go back to the old way. Try and try again, right? It's the only way that you're going to continually improve. You know, the part to me that probably takes most precedence is how is the staff evolving through this process, right? And so what that means to me is a lot of times whenever organizations go through big transformation projects, there may be, typically what I found is probably about a 24 to 26% 24 to 26% chance that you have employees that just say, you know what, I love doing it the way that I used to do it. I can't take this on. I can't learn this new process. I'm just going to go over here and work for a competitor. I'm going to go work for somebody else. And unfortunately, you know, that attrition happens. But if it's aligned with a vision and you're putting effort into it, then you know that it's going to be, you know that it's going to work. And then we get into the experience, and this is kind of where everything all wraps up in the final vote. Now this is where we start getting into the high-tech, high-touch banking. You know, and I'm sure Jake and everybody at INVO is like, thank God, when is he going to talk about technology? But it's at this precise moment when you guys understand the level of technology that you need inside of your organization. And so, you know, really, Jim Maria says, the financial brand guy, he says, understand me, anticipate my needs, and reward me for doing business with you. And so, in my understanding, Imagine is the blueprint for all of those things. You can find out how to reward people, you can find out how to anticipate their needs, and you can find out how to understand them better. So it all comes together here. Identify who you are, who you serve, where you find them, how you get noticed by them, what are you best at, how do you nurture and educate your people and your client base, as well as how do you stage experiences for your staff and for your members and your clients that differentiate you from the field and help prevent you from being commoditized and rate shopped all day. And so, to me, this is how South Umpqua Bank, back in 1995, went from being a $150 million bank to the behemoth of retail banking that they are now. Umpqua Bank is, I don't know, how many billions, 35, 50 billion dollars, but they started as a $150 million little retail shop with 6 locations up in Oregon. And so that's the process, that's the way that we did it. And so if you can go to the next slide, there's a picture. And so this is a visual translation for everything that we just talked about. So they say a picture's worth 1,000 words, I've probably said 1,000 words, and that picture just wraps them all up into one. And so you go from that starting point all the way to the point where you have an experience where you are putting all of this into practice and you're taking your learnings and you're doing it better. You're taking your learnings and you're doing it better. Taking your learnings so on and so on and so on. And so, you know, I think I'll have a little fun with this. So this to me is an illustration of my outfit. So the outfit that I have on, I've got some old school penny loafers that I got at Goodwill for this. What I think that represents is probably about a third of everybody's tech stack in here. They're old, they're tried and true, they're a little worn, they got a little, little scrapes, little dust on them, but they work, right? And you can't go wrong with them. There's a lot of use for them. And then the Patagonia shorts, right? You gotta have them when you're going on the hike, right? But it's a name brand. It's well respected. Everybody knows them, right? To me, that's kind of like online banking. Everybody's got to have it. It's table stakes now. But that's, it's gotten you thus far, and we need to continue figuring that out. Are they the right fit? I don't know. The shirt, I don't know, I love this shirt. I don't know what you guys think, but is it for a luau? Is it for a party? Is it for the pool? I mean, I don't know. I just wear it for everything. I wore it to a wedding on Saturday. But what I think the shirt is, it's your CRM. You don't know what it's for. Nobody knows how to use it. And that's, to me, that's the only thing that makes sense. And then the jacket, like I said, it was on the picture whenever I came up. This jacket was made for me in Kowloon, which is Hong Kong Island. I was visiting my sister who was teaching English overseas. And so I was told I needed to go see Sam's tailor, because I was getting married, or I was about to propose. And so I was getting married later that year, and I needed to go get fitted for a suit. And so I went to Sam's tailor, and back in 2015, I was working out every single day. I was riding my bike to Wells Fargo. So I was putting like 150 miles on the bike every week. And so I was, like 180 pounds just beefed up. So this was made for me, right? But it wasn't made for me recently. So I'm like 20 pounds lighter, I've got kids now, and my life is very, very different. I do not have all that time to be working out. So just because it fit then, 7 years ago, doesn't mean it fits today. And I would say that that's probably another 33% of the technology systems and the products and the offerings that everybody has in their portfolio and in their offering set. And so, does that make sense? Raise your hands. So I think what it means is that we kind of have a hodgepodge of offerings and different technologies and different services that we do, but this process can help us to put it so that we have the tailored fit, we have the tailored offerings, we have the tailored people, and we have the tailored client base to help us meet the goals that we're outlining for ourselves. And so, are there any golf fans in the house? Raise your hands. All right, so if we go to the next slide, there we go. Anybody remember this? That was pre-Live. That was pre-Live Golf Phil. But in 2021, I played this course. This is in Kiowa, South Carolina. So it's the longest course that has ever been played for a major. It was measuring 8,152 yards, I think it was, which is just absolutely absurd. And so what Phil Mickelson did was he worked with the Callaway team, his club sponsor, and said, all right, I'm gonna need a whole different type of setup to go tackle Kiowa. So he brought 87 different clubs. You're only allowed to have 14 on the course with you at one time. But he brought 87 different clubs, and he basically, I think I did the math right, he had 88,000 different combinations of what he could put in the bag on each day, depending on the wind, depending on course conditions, depending on humidity, all those different things. And so at almost 50 years old, he won the tournament. It was the most, I'm sitting there just mind blown that Lefty could pull that off. And then he lost his mind, got in more gambling debt, and went to Live. And now he's Saudi back. But that's neither here nor there. And so, basically, whenever I think about this, and whenever I'm trying to get you guys ready to think about what's going to happen here at Summit, is there is a strategy for everyone. Imagine may not be it. You guys might have everything figured out, and you need to figure out just one little piece of the equation and put that in place. Or it may be the case where, hey, we're at a place where I can throw everything on the table and have an honest, open-minded, and willing conversation with my executive team, the people that work for us, the clients that we serve, the members that are in our membership, and have an honest conversation about, why do you work with us? Why did you choose us? Out of everybody. Where I'm from in St. Louis, raise your hands. Anybody been to St. Louis recently? Go Cards, Pujols, 700, right? Pretty amazing. On the block that I used to grow up on in St. Louis, there's a main drag. It's Route 66, I guess it is, Manchester Road. So in Manchester Road, there's a strip that I think from 141 all the way to Clarkson Road, there's 158 different banking locations in 3 miles. that's too much, right? That's too much. But what it means to me is that people have options. Technology has made those options even easier, and so it is incumbent on all the leaders here to find out what strategy makes sense for you all. If you picked up something from Imagine, great. I want you to help understand who you are, who you serve, where you find them, how do you get noticed by them, what are you best at, and offer that. How do you nurture and educate your staff as well as the membership and your clients? And how do you stage experiences that hopefully get you to the point where you can transform people's life and allow them to do things that they weren't able to do prior to meeting? And that's where I think I'll hand it off to the rest of the team. So thank you guys very much. I appreciate all of your attention, and I thank you for the opportunity to be here with you today.